I want to take you behind the scenes on planning content for the year. Now, I know a lot of folks are doing this right now, and this is an excellent opportunity for you to be more productive as a writer, to reach better and higher paying customers, and ultimately streamline your back office when it comes to being a copywriter, marketer, or a small agency. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. Now, remember, our goal is to help you go from freelance marketer, freelance copywriter, to a small agency. And when you're a small agency, it means that you're going to have a more productive system to create copy that you're being paid to write. You're not just writing a lot of copy for yourself, but you're generating income. And the majority of that income is passive, meaning you focus on the core clients that you have, and ultimately you're going to have a very small staff. You can have a large staff if you want, but you'll have a small staff that is promoting what you do as a highly paid copywriter or marketer. So rather than getting paid per word or chasing clients that never pay you or being frustrated, you're going to get 5-figure and 6-figure writing contracts, engagements, rather than piecemeal here and there. Now, why is a content calendar important? Well, you may not know, you may not know, you may know, I don't know. But the key is I've been putting together 22 years of my writing materials in one place. Now, I've talked about this in other areas, but I built a vault, a giant library of all the content I've written for all my clients where I have rights to use the materials, where I have notes and newsletter articles. You might not be aware, but there's more than 200 podcast episodes for ad briefings. And then I have several other channels that also have episodes. I've written reports and books. I've written all kinds of materials. I've put them all in one place. And I realized that writing is not the problem. You can create large volumes of content in the next 12 months, and you could be prolific on your blog posts, on your podcast. You could do interviews on other people's channels. You could write marketing pieces for thousands and thousands of people, thousands and thousands of words, and you could still not make any money. And that doesn't serve the purpose of why we're here with ad briefings, which is to help you build your business. You have the greatest power in the world, which is the ability to write copy that sells, the ability to generate leads, the ability to target a market, the ability to write out an avatar. You can do all these things, but if you're not getting paid to do these things, it is essentially just wandering around in the dark. So I've realized I've got too many podcast episodes. I've got too much content because if I look at the dollars generated, there's a lot of content that didn't produce anything. Now, all in all, it comes together because I know other things to produce products and services and clients. But here's my key. If you're going to do a podcast, if you're going to do content for your blog, you need to do it for one of two pieces. And essentially, you're only doing it for one person. But let me share. The first part is going to be you're going to create podcasts for projects. You need to have specific projects. Now, these projects could be special reports that position you as an expert copywriter, as an expert marketer. It may document your methodology and you sell that as a home study program, or you sell it as a book, or you even just give it away as part of a lead generation piece. But these projects are the backbone of your business. A lot of the content I've written, especially in the early years, was just willy-nilly, brain farts and ideas and concepts. And, sometimes it was commissions. So there are some weird reports I've written in the past that a client paid me to do, but we'll talk about that in the second, categories you're going to write for. But it was a lot of that content was just floating around there. Now, there was a point in my development where I said, look, I've written 5 times on this particular topic. Is there a story here? Is there a product here? And I started working with the GKIC type folks and learning about information marketing. And I realized that packaging materials together into projects allows me to create something of value. So instead of having 2 or 3 podcasts or 2 or 3 articles that kind of on similar topics, but they don't really connect to each other, I end up with a home study program by weaving those materials together around, and here's the most important part, around my understanding of specific people. So there's 2 audiences you write for, there's 2 audiences you create for. One audience is a specific project that you're getting paid to do. That's the best kind of project, or a project that creates a specific deliverable that increases your business, or the people, which is your clients, your newsletter subscribers, your specific individuals in an audience. Now, when you understand those people, you can shape projects to be more relevant to them, and you create a reinforcing cycle that starts to create artifacts that prove your expertise. And by the way, I just finished a book called Establishing Instant Credibility. And the premise of that book is that it shows you how to create artifacts that go ahead of your interaction and prove your value to the marketplace. Now, what is the marketplace? Again, that is specific buyers, specific customers in your market. So if I'm going to create a podcast, and this is in my more recent years, I'm creating podcasts specifically for some real person. So I'm creating something for the copywriter who is a freelancer and they're struggling. They're making a little bit of money, but they're struggling and they really need to get systems in place to start building up that passive income. I just gave you one idea there. You can actually package materials together to create books and courses. But those books and courses are for specific human buyers, not for markets, not for an avatar, but for a specific human buyer. Now, at the end of this podcast, I will tell you how I'm changing the structure of my organization to make this easier for me. Because again, if you've done, so here's an example. I've done 200 podcasts, and they're about 15 minutes each. And the average person can speak 200 words a minute. That's 600,000 words in just my podcast alone. I've got, I think my book, Increasing Profits, Sales and Profits, that book is 100,000 words. The most recent book I put out was 40,000 words, The Establishing Credibility. Um, getting words on paper is not the problem, right? You could write, you could be interviewed, you could do a talk about, you could do a presentation, but you don't have an audience to do it for. Now, fortunately, the large majority of my writing after I kind of discovered the projects concept was paid for by my clients, and I was able to retain licensing rights or retain the rights to the core materials. Not all of them, but the majority, and that gives me a library of to build on. But again, that's the business of copywriting. Does your contract allow for that? Is it appropriate? Now, I've written a lot of stuff in risk management and corporate procedure. I don't really want those materials, and I don't have the rights to those materials, and that's perfectly fine with me. But there are fundamental elements like evergreen topics and evergreen materials that I do at least have the rights to the first draft. What does your business look like? Are you building equity in customers? So you're building a network of clients, but also building equity in intellectual property that you can at least use to promote your own business or to position yourself as an expert or to set yourself up as a credible authority in advance of a sales presentation. So looking at 22 years of materials, there's, grammar's fine, persuasion is fine, but those materials are just collecting dust if they're not woven into projects that specifically serve people. Now, what about your content plan? Okay, so now knowing that you need to focus on specific people, everything in your content plan for the year must be about specific people. Now, I've caveated that you need to get paid to do your work because, just writing all by yourself in a dark room is just like useless. It doesn't really do anything. And there's a lot of blog posts out there that have no traffic. There's a lot of podcasts that have no listeners. There's a lot of sales materials that go out in the mail and have no response. So how do we get that response? Well, again, we write with purpose. We dig deep down into the psychological aspects of our target audience. Now, as a copywriter or marketer, you might be targeting small businesses in a specific niche. Because, see, these big businesses, unless they're direct response folks, they already have marketers in house, and you might get a crumb or two off of a company. I found that large corporations, and I've written about this in the past, large corporations tend to hire technical writers, white people who do white papers, people who write larger scripts and presentations. That's fine. I've gotten some of that work in the past, but I found that with my technical expertise, I really nailed the technical writing, the procedural manuals, the risk analysis work, and those kinds of things. Because a large corporation has a marketing team, but when small businesses and medium-sized businesses come along, they don't have marketing teams, and they're more than happy to bring on a copywriter or a marketer. And if you call yourself a copywriter, they don't always know what that means. So that's why I keep putting the word marketer in there, because they'll hire marketers to help them with their business plan, to help them with their content plan, to help them with their strategy in the marketplace, to help them with the research necessary to know which customers are profitable and which ones are not. So again, are you writing with purpose? Next, you have to survey your audience to understand your audience. You're going to see a lot more surveys come out from me over the years. Now, you might notice that I'm putting these surveys in. I'm asking questions of my reader, and people do raise their hand and send in messages, not as much as I'd like them to. But you really got to get in there and do a survey, a prospect survey, an ask campaign, something to really understand that audience and then narrow down who you're going to serve. Because one thing I have noticed over the years is there are many times I've answered questions of subscribers, and that subscriber is not a potential paying customer. That subscriber is a student. They're curious. It's a brain fart. They aren't going to really engage. They have no budget. And if you've experienced that, again, that focus matters. Finally, you're going to create deliverables. So if you write a special report one time and you make it available for the tire kickers and the people on the websites as part of a free newsletter, and people go and they ask for that information, and then your report sets them up to engage in either a paid consultation or a particular project or service, then that's great because it has very low overhead for you. You could write the report once and then you can promote it for the rest of your life, and it will feed your sales funnel. That is an excellent use of time. However, if you're writing reports and books and materials, long form materials, and you're trying to sell them online because you know Amazon is a platform for buyers and you're going to get that first engagement, and you're not going out there and doing the other things that are necessary to promote a book, you're better off finding a customer, going direct to individuals, get a client assignment, and then recycle that assignment back with the same audience. There are many copywriters, marketers, and other types of business development professionals who are out there and they don't have LinkedIn profiles. They don't have blog posts on their website. They don't have a podcast, and they don't have a lot of things except a fat bank account. And they have a fat bank account because they did the Dream 100 list. They picked 100 target clients that they'd like to work for, and they sent them direct mail, and they stalked them on the platforms, and they did research with surveys, and they shared the results of their surveys and generated clients, which then generate deliverables. Again, that feeds back to the projects because they were specific with the people. I got on my little outline here, I've got a lot more tips to help with that content plan, but I want to flip over to what we're doing here and kind of illustrate a few of those tips, because there's going to be and I've mentioned it here, as I've looked over my historic materials, there is that desire to improve our skills, but we want to improve those skills in the application of our own marketing. So one of the reasons I've continued to do podcasts, I've got more podcasts than I've got numbers on the podcast. But those podcasts don't have show notes. They're not on my website. They're on different networks. Some of them are archived on my computer. I'm not as worried about that for you. What I'm worried about is that, again, that improving your ability to connect with buyers and doing it in such a structure that you're focused, so you can take limited resources and focus them on specific multipliers. So let me describe some of the multipliers I will have in the new year. First off, as always, I limit the number of private clients that I take on. So if I'm working for a corporation, I'm not looking for other corporations to work for, because I will have some mid-sized backfill, or I'll have revenue from the newsletter, or I'll have revenue from something passive, because a corporate assignment could be a good 40, 50 hours a week, depending on what's going on, pays really well, I'm not complaining about that, but because the time is not available to do all this administrative overhead that's necessary to have a podcast, to have a newsletter, to have this other stuff, by narrowing the number of private clients, I am going to be able to better use my time. Now, the private clients become like your cash cows. That's going to create your overhead for the year. That's going to pay for your assistant. That's going to pay for your editors. That's going to pay for your team, and which I do have a small team. However, I have noticed that in my historical materials, I had made the mistake of focusing that team on the minutia of content creation rather than the focused effort of client generation. So they're supporting client interactions and paperwork and bookkeeping and giving me a quick review of a writing. They might be formatting documents for me. They might be turning hand-drawn stuff into PowerPoint presentations. They might be doing research and stuff like that. But as soon as you let those folks shift off into the things that are blog posts and don't really have a solid audience, you're taking them away from getting you paying clients. So, majority of my overhead staff will continue to focus on paying clients, and that's why you won't see show notes for everything. However, I am looking to have at least 100 active subscribers per channel. So if you didn't know it, I have ad briefings, copywriting tips, prosperity homestead, inside strategic relations, sustainable wealth secrets newsletter, and then I have a newsletter that kind of brings everything together called From My Desk. Those things are still going to happen because I have a volume of materials and a backlog of content that I can present to those channels. However, if that channel doesn't have 100 active subscribers, or it gets to 100 active subscribers, meaning people who send me emails and ask questions and stuff, I'm not going to go for 200. So the typical paid newsletter that I have is about $70. I don't get email from 100 people a week. I don't get a lot of interaction with the folks. There's quite a few subscribers, like 4,000 or so total contacts in my CRM. But it is quite possible some of these people are just very passive. I don't want passivity. I want individuals getting results. So what I'm doing is I'm rolling up any coaching to be completely separate of the individual newsletters. I'm making the individual newsletters to be like a paid prospect newsletter. It's educational and useful and all that, but majority of the money that's gained from the newsletter will go right back into content for the newsletter, hosting for the newsletter, and materials like that. That way, I can put one entry level staff person on managing 3 or 4 of those, and then my activities are focused on, again, client activity, client not just generation, but client services. Because if I'm at I don't feel comfortable if I'm at anything less than 80% billing rate. Now, the passive income comes from the activities that other people are doing, the newsletters being out there. Once you've written a newsletter series, people can subscribe all the time, and you just keep getting paid like that. But what I'm doing here, and this goes back to what we started with, is I'm taking the feedback from those active subscribers, and I'm saying, okay, folks, you're very interested, you're taking action, you're doing things. I'm going to make more content that speaks specifically to you, the action taker, and then I'm going to ignore all the billions of other people that are possible subscribers or that are in certain niches and markets, and just essentially ignore them. I got enough content already. They can look at historical content and see stuff, but I want to say, hey, look, there's this guy in Tennessee who's writing copy for farm and agricultural environments, and he asked me a question about X, and I'm going to answer that question specifically, even if it excludes a larger audience, because they may not be in agriculture, they may not be in such and such. Doesn't matter. Those who take action, meaning you, if you write in with a question, you'll automatically get bumped up the list. Now, you'll still be below private clients, and you'll still be below paid newsletter subscribers, but because you took action, I'll get you in the queue ahead of somebody else. So that means my content calendar is a little bit more flexible than the typical content calendar, because my purpose is not to write content. My purpose is to serve clients delivering paid projects. So do you see how that all blends together? So I've got 4,700 contacts in my CRM system. These include newsletter subscribers, past clients, book buyers, a large variety of people. I don't need 16,000. It's better to go find the 100 really active people in a niche area, serve them really, really well, and then the materials that come off of that service become the courses and become the different types of residual product that I'm making available. So if you didn't know, by the way, and because I'm not pushing this stuff as hard as I don't need to be begging you for Patreon or asking you to support the channel. I don't need any of that stuff. I got income coming in because I have a model that works. However, what I'm going to do more actively is as I'm serving my specific people, my past clients come back for repeat work, my newsletter subscribers that are engaged, I will go ahead and start creating outlines in my courses area and then go ahead and put a sticker price on that. And then if somebody's just wanders around interested, they can get involved in the course and they don't disrupt my services of actual clients. Now, you may not be aware, I've got a website management insights course. I've got social media classified ads course, your first information product, article marketing secrets. The book I just published on establishing instant credibility started in 2004. Okay, now it's 2023 now, and I've revised it. It's its second edition, but again, I can just publish that. People buy it or they don't buy it. It doesn't matter to me. I give it away as gifts to potential clients. It represents a type of service that I do provide for people. But ultimately, I don't need to go chase podcast people to try to sell 1 million books. I don't need to be an Amazon bestseller because making $4.50 a book off of a physical book or maybe $10 or $15 off of an ebook, I have to sell thousands of those books to make what I make off of one copywriting assignment. So one copywriting assignment could net 15, 20, $50,000. And now the reason is again, these are project based. They're a bit more complex. They're more strategic for the client. They focus on creating physical or financial results for the client. I'm not sitting around on some message board waiting for somebody to pay 3 cents a word for a blog post. I'm cultivating a series of 12 posts plus a sales letter. I'm cultivating 4 lead generation pieces that drive to an existing sales letter in an A/B split. And some of the other projects that I do might be writing customer avatars or researching out a specific audience base. I'm a subject matter expert in affluent markets and a couple other markets. Uh, these types of things, what I'm arguing here and trying to position to you are value positions, equity positions, positions that have passive income tied to them, positions that elevate you in a marketplace so that you don't have to chase. And in fact, many of my past clients have found, or newsletter subscribers have found, stumbled upon the website or stumbled upon something, and uh, they are engaged immediately because they see the evidence, they see the proof, and then I give them low risk ways to get that initial involvement. More than 200 podcasts. You can just listen to the podcast for hours and get an idea of whether or not I'm going to be able to help you solve a problem. This is what I'm sharing with you here. So now you're going to see a lot of people that are going to talk about what content should you be writing about in the new year? What are the new trends and tips? What are what's the latest app and tool you ought to use? Again, I argue against that because if you want to transition from a freelance marketer or a freelance copywriter to an actual business of copywriting where you're generating revenue on a regular and consistent basis, then all it is about focusing on people with money, customers in the marketplace that you can serve, and then produce projects for them. Projects are deliverables. Now, with the right stuff that we mentioned, the creating a vault of your historic content, having research methods so that you can properly understand changes and trends in the marketplace, this allows you to become an expert position or an expert individual to these companies, and then you don't need a database with 70,000 people. You don't need to be going after a market with 7 million individuals. Oh, you ought to get on social media because it's got millions of users. You don't need millions of users. Very easily, if you have 100 paying clients, and each of those 100 paying clients is worth $10,000 a year, you've got, and I'll do the math just to be sure, you've got $1 million in gross. Now, $1 million in gross will usually net you about $100,000, $200,000 in actual take home. Now, you got a new problem because of taxes, but ultimately, again, that's 100 clients. You don't need uh, millions of clients. You don't need to fill a room full of people. You just need to be able to focus down. And so I showed you how I'm going to focus, and then have the models that generate both residual income and create for you active income. Now, if your active income is $1 million a year and your residual is $500,000 a year, you're in an excellent position. But I'm not selling you a fantasy here, because you will have an administrative assistant, you will have a bookkeeper, you will have somebody in your office taking care of some things. They don't have to actually be in your office, but you'll be hiring people, because even 100 clients a year, that's two a week. And you want to make sure that these customers are getting quality deliverables. Now, a lot of folks that are teaching copywriting, they're teaching it to people that don't have any clients, or they, excuse me, never had a client. You guys are different. The majority of the people who are active on this newsletter or this podcast, who send in their questions, have had at least a handful of client assignments, and they just want to make that more consistent. They want to be able to grow the business. They want to be able to have a higher income and revenue opportunity, and they want more stability and consistency in that world. That's what we're going to focus on for the next 12 months. I do have more tutorials and materials to share with you through through projects specific to people's needs that are paying clients. Now, if you want to get the crumbs off of that, that's fine. But if you want to ante up and pay for a paid newsletter, that's fine too. It elevates your status when it comes to the questions. But the majority of what I do over the years has been focus on buyers and those who are interactive, those who are asking the questions, those who are engaged, because the large masses out there really are not, they're not my customer. They're not my client. They can't afford the things that we're talking about. And now I want to help you understand the same thing. And so when you're focusing on clients, you're going to get more of them. When you're focusing on people who have problems in the marketplace, you're going to get more of the people becoming clients. Let me help you do that this year. I want to thank you for listening. I'm Justin Hitt with the Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips newsletter. There are more resources and tools available at www.adbriefing.co.uk. If you're a paid newsletter subscriber, which there's an option to pay to join us, you get content that's behind a paywall. You get access to courses and materials. Again, it's really up to you. But those engaged individuals, those audiences, those specific buyers are worth way more than some general numbskull that wanders across some of these things, and they're taking marketing in college, and they're going to email me and ask me about, why is long copy better than short copy, or why is short copy. Again, let's elevate your game. Let's get you to the next level. Again, I'll see you in the next podcast. Thanks for listening.